The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max Smackdown Review.
Hello and welcome to the Wrestling to the Max Smackdown Live Review for December 13th, 2016. And I'm your host, Sean Garmer here. Of course, with me is Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
Still getting everything going back again after the trip? Or are you back in the swing of things already?
I'm pretty much back in the swing of things. Hanging out at the house. I'm trying to catch up on my massive backlog of wrestling that I have. So that's been a trial because I don't want to sit around and watch 8 hours of wrestling. I'm not a young man anymore. So
I'm totally with you on that one. Sorry, I had to let the dog get out of the room since he decided he wants to start barking randomly.
right.
But yeah, it's one of those things. Like I catch myself as well sometimes. Like I'm just like, man, it's so weird because when we first started this thing, I was all about let's just watch hours and hours of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start working a lot and you now with us having the site and having other responsibilities, where I actually have to sit here and play games because I have to write about them later.
Right.
Like I have to sit there and go, okay, how much time do I have for this, and you can't just spend 8 hours watching wrestling as much as you wanted to before, when you didn't have so much to do.
Yeah, I mean it's different now, right? Because we have to either write about it or we have to talk about it on the show, and we watch so much content already. So sitting around and just watching wrestling for fun anymore, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, it isn't exactly a thing I do anymore. So I mean I try to get in some stuff where I'm like, hey, I could just sit here and watch the show. I don't have to worry about keeping track of stuff or paying attention fiercely because there's a lot of stuff happening in a match sometimes, and it just
you can just
in the nicest way
it.
possible. Yeah, you don't get a chance to just sit back and enjoy it. Sometimes you just gotta. Most of the time, whenever I'm watching wrestling now, I have to give you my full 100% attention and pay attention and all this other stuff where I can't just sit there and enjoy it,
And even then, like if it's one of those great matches, you got to sit there and like, oh, do I got to put it on my list of the great matches of this year or whatever, So even then, it's sort of like, all right, I got to sort of be, paying attention for things too. So.
Right. Which I did because I watched the first night of the UK Global Wars from Rare Pro, and Ishii and Hero was goddamn amazing. So.
I bet that was freaking great. That's
incredible.
Amazing stuff there. So here we go with this SmackDown Live review for what just happened yesterday, technically, since it's 1:30 a.m. here where I'm at, and already the next day where you are as well. This SmackDown sort of felt like it flew by, as most SmackDowns kind of do, but this one, I think for me, it was an easy sit here and watch, mainly because they had a nice just story going with, okay, we knew that there was supposed to be a James Ellsworth and AJ Styles title match. James Ellsworth is sick, probably had to work an indie date or something, and that's why he couldn't be there. But I think that they did a much better job this time of sort of circumventing that and giving you something else to sort of care about here. And I think the way they started this with this Miz TV, we brought this up, I think, when we talked about not only on Raw but on on the W2M Part 1 episode that everybody should definitely go check out. That what is the next thing for AJ, because he's kind of beat everybody, and he did wrestle other guys before he got into this big long thing with Dean Ambrose. So like almost everybody else on SmackDown sort of taken care of. He wrestled Miz before when he was kind of just starting out and having that feud with Chris Jericho as well, which they seem to want you to forget during this Miz TV segment. But I did like the fact that something we used to see, back in the day, your WWE Champion, Intercontinental Champion, they're going at it because they want to prove who's the better champion or whatever. That's what Miz and AJ do here. And Miz kind of says, well, I'm above you, AJ, sort of messing with him. And kind of getting in his face that maybe I should be the one to challenge you next. And this brings out Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, and even one Luke Harper, which, he's kind of been in this thing with Randy Orton and Bray about, well, should we trust Randy Orton, should we not? And I thought it was really awesome that Luke Harper got to be involved here. Of course, this leads to a Fatal 4-Way, which was very good, your main event at the end of the night. Dolph Ziggler, once again, number one contender, who was who was actually, I think, Dolph and Dean were the ones that went for the title, I'm sorry, during the first sort of feud after the brand split with Dean and Dolph. So you like the Dolph win here? What did you think about all this, how they set it up for AJ and all that?
I was kind of left flat by the opening segment. Not to say that it was bad or anything, but certainly there were parts of it I liked and parts of it I didn't like. The Miz and AJ interaction I really enjoyed. And then they start bringing out Dean, and I'm like, I love Dean, I really do, but I don't know if he needs to move on, right? He needs to do something else. And then they bring out Luke Harper, and they have this kick-ass new Wyatt vignette play thing now, which I really enjoy, because it looks a lot cooler. And Harper shows up, which got me real excited. And then you hit the match, and Luke, by far, MVP of that match, because that little stretch of all the clotheslines and everything like that was absolutely incredible. And he wore the working boots tonight, and absolutely, I think, knocked it out of the park. I'm okay with Ziggler getting the nod here. I kind of was, in the back of my mind, wanting it to be The Miz just to see what they would do. But doing the switch with Dolph and Dean, if you're not going to turn anybody, is fine with me. And we'll see where we go from here, and hopefully we get some new blood at the top of the card.
Yeah, I wish that, you didn't have Luke Harper kind of really cemented in that heel spot, because I think Miz and Luke Harper would be great as far as at least in-ring perspective, because I hope they don't just turn this into the next person for The Miz is Dean Ambrose because there's nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we just saw a match between the two, and it's not like we haven't seen these guys feud various times. At least Luke Harper would be something fresh, but obviously you don't want heel versus heel with two guys that aren't really likable in the situations that they're in. I would want to, Randy Orton says that he's really been enjoying this feud with being involved with the Wyatts, that it's like made him feel really fresh and or refreshed in what he's been doing. Have you? Obviously it took a while, but do you feel like you're a little bit more interested in him now than when he was just Randy Orton?
I like the dynamic they have right now, but it's not one I'm overly attached to, simply because I feel like it's going to blow up in our face sooner and later while we're all just sort of sitting here waiting for it, like we often talk about. And when it comes to Luke and all this, I really liked him sort of stepping up in this, where he's still trying to gain Bray's attention and trying to win back that coveted spot of sort of being the right-hand man that Randy's taken over now. And it'll be interesting to see how they play off of this next week, too, as far as his interactions with those two again, and his very much large distrust that he has of Randy Orton being a part of the family now.
I agree, and I mean, the one thing I will say is that whenever they do have the blow up, you're going to have some great Luke Harper Randy Orton matches.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I even find myself wondering where Jesus, I'm blanking on his name.
Eric
Luke's
Rowan.
where Eric Rowan is and how he's going to factor in all this when he comes back, and like, what if you have guys start picking sides and stuff? It has a lot of room to open up.
Oh, certainly. And I mean, Eric Rowan's one of those guys that, like, Luke Harper could do something by himself. Eric Rowan's certainly not. So you have to add him back into the family. So moving on from what is your main storyline of the show, you now know who your number one contender is. They did have AJ on Talking Smack where he asked Daniel Bryan for protection from all these guys that are coming at him. And he's like, look, man, I'd take them all one by one. Everybody needs to get in line. But I don't want to deal with all this, just all at once. And, it's the way AJ's character is. He's kind of... It's a different take on the chicken shit heel that they don't do very much. Which is AJ still gets to look dominant. But he still gets a little bit of the whole... Okay, there's only certain ways that I'm going to deal with you, but not just going to be total, I'll take you all on kind of thing either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's proven time and time again he can beat guys by himself. It may not always be the cleanest way possible, but he can beat them, right?
Right.
And he's not one of those guys that wants to do these big multi-man matches, because obviously his chances of winning goes down. I mean, it's classic heel stuff, and something I really enjoyed them touching on.
It's obvious, it's real life. Like, why would I want to be in a match with 5 people when I could just be in a match with 1?
Exactly.
So we get the other number one contender that was crowned on this show was for the tag team titles, which the problem is now that Zack Ryder might have dislocated or in some form popped his patella tendon out of place and popped it back in place during this match. And so if it's something that requires surgery or anything like that, he is going to be out, and therefore they would have to crown another number one contender after this Battle Royal. But they also did have the Usos wanting stuff there on Talking Smack as well after this had already gone down. Who actually they were not involved. They were not involved in this because of, I think it's Jay had a problem. He's injured in some form, but he still wants to take on. They still want to take on the Wyatts, even with one of them being hurt. So at least got to respect the fact that they want these titles no matter what. But what do you think of the match and the decision to have Hype Bros win?
I believe the injured Uso is the one who's married to Naomi, which is Jimmy, right?
Then. Yes.
Yeah. Simply just because of the off mark that Jay made whenever he talked about them already having a chick on their team, and Jay was like, "Man, you better be happy she ain't here, otherwise she'll be pissed." I thought this was a nice surprise. I was really expecting Heath Slater and Rhino to come out of this, and they give it to the Hype Bros, which is just I feels like fodder for the progression of the Wyatt family, which is fine. They need to look strong in all this, and before you get to whatever you're going to do with them. And you also get to continue the story of American Alpha just continually coming up short in these opportunities due to shenanigans, So I think that it all works out fine here.
I think you also don't want to waste, have them just run through a team, because you don't need to necessarily waste American Alpha on a December 27th SmackDown show.
Mm-hmm.
Have them be in a bigger profile, whether it's the Royal Rumble or it's, I guess theirs would be Fastlane, whether it's there at Fastlane where you have it. I mean, I could see these guys being the ones that perhaps you let the Wyatts have the belt until WrestleMania, and that's where you have American Alpha win and have a big crowning moment there at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. I think that is the idea, but I don't know if they're going to keep the Wyatt family together in this formation for that long, to be honest. Simply just because I feel like this is bound to blow up inside the Rumble match at some point, and I don't, but I just don't know. Like you said, if Randy's happy here and they decide to run with this for a while, then maybe you could play that into it to where it goes on for so long that people finally get over the idea that it's going to blow up, and then they blow it up,
I mean, that would be the smart thing, right? You don't want people to be, that's the thing. The longer it goes on, the less we're sitting here constantly talking about it, that it is going to blow up. And then it's an actual surprise as to when it happens, and you're actually shocked, and then therefore the actual storyline worked then. If you do it like when, I think you can tease it in the Rumble, and we've seen this several times where, the Shield did this where they didn't automatically break up right after the Rumble or whatever. So it's possible that you just have one of them eliminates the other and the other eliminates the other, and they all kind of have to have I guess it could become a come to the devil moment and decide, hey, what's better? Do we keep this together or do we just blow up over something that was always going to be for one person? Only one person can go in the Royal Rumble at the end of the day. So it is going to be interesting, and then I don't even know how far Eric Rowan is in his recovery. They haven't even talked about it. So, but he could show up and not attack anyone either.
Right, exactly, and I think having him just be reintroduced and then he's suddenly thrust into the bickering that's sort of going on would be much more interesting, just to see which side he falls on and all that stuff. Or maybe he goes with Luke, who he has a lot of history with, and obviously nobody likes a new kid on the block, right? So, but for me, I mean, inside the Rumble, the Wyatt family is geared around making sure Bray succeeds, and except now you have the wrinkle of Randy in there, who is sort of trying to continue to push that direction, but keeping focus on himself and sort of how he goes about doing things, and sort of being the guy that has gotten the Wyatt family to this next level, right? So I don't know if it works in the Rumble the same way the Shield does, simply because they were three guys who happen to be in a group together, and this is very much a faction built on a pyramid scale where you have Bray at the top and everybody else is sort of feeding into that point,
Right, that's very true. So, we'll have to see if Randy Orton can keep it together and not get into Viper mode when he gets into the Royal Rumble. So, we have the rest of this is sort of geared towards the women here. You have Carmella and Natalya. Of course, Natalya trying to defend her honor of trying to say that, hey, look, Nikki, I didn't take you down, And then Carmella kind of interrupts her speech there that she was giving to Nikki, who's on commentary. Carmella actually beats Natalya after Nikki and Natalya are sitting there arguing, and then Carmella rolls Natalya up for the distraction roll-up finish. Oh, come on now. But this is sort of more of an angle than a match, right? I mean, there wasn't. This was here to sort of continue this whole thing between the three of them.
Exactly, and I think it throws some doubt on maybe who actually attacked Nikki, because it seems, at least at this point in time, it seems like Natty is sort of genuine in the fact, and it feel like they're overplaying it so much to the fact that if it was her, it would just be obvious. And if it's Carmella, then you're rehashing the same old thing, and I would hate for them to sort of go back on that whenever it seems what you did at TLC was kind of final. So I've been leaning towards the idea now, especially watching the show, that I think it's Eva Marie.
That would be interesting, especially now that we have confirmation after all that she is definitely coming back. It would be a great way to reintroduce her, get back all that heat that she had before, and of course I'm sure she'll come back with that crazy entrance and everything else. And then you kind of go from there as to what you're going to do. Obviously, Eva Marie, Alexa Bliss would have to, either you have to do something where it's a multi-person with Alexa Bliss as champion, or somebody else is going to have to be champion in order for Eva Marie to sort of challenge for that. But a great starter feud for Nikki again with Eva coming in. I don't mind this sort of like Nikki taking the. I hate making parallels between them, but it kind of is the truth of Nikki sort of taking that John Cena role in the women's division of, okay, I'm just going to take on, all the ones that you kind of want to build up a little bit, use my star power to see if I can give them anything and see what happens. I don't know necessarily that it's done wonders for Carmella, but I think that says more about where Carmella is at this point than Nikki, but it could help Eva Marie in that get her over more as a heel. I mean, I don't know that she needs that much because she's already crazy booed every time she comes out, but it all helps.
Yeah, and I think the interesting idea of doing it with Nikki is you could sort of, if you want to play off the history told of Bella's, where there was that jealousy about Eva Marie even coming in. Now it's about Eva trying to overshadow Nikki and her trying to just prove that she still belongs in the party and everything. And I'll say this. Carmella initially didn't get a reaction. Tonight she got a reaction. So certainly something with Nikki worked.
Yeah, there you go. So that's all you need. And at least that's all you need to continue to be on the show, right? Is you need to get that reaction. And so that's good. Becky Lynch wanted her rematch. She got it. But Alexa Bliss didn't really want anything to do with this match, as you would assume. And Becky Lynch kind of beat her up a bit until Alexa Bliss said, you know what? I don't need this. And she walked out, and Becky Lynch won by countout, thus earning herself another shot at Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss also didn't want anything to do with Deonna Purrazzo. Hey, another Deonna Purrazzo sighting.
Yeah, not the first time we've talked about her this week, and it's still early. I enjoyed this whole thing from start to finish, really. Alexa playing up her character to perfection, walking out on not only a match with Deonna, but nearly walking out on her match with Becky before Shane comes out and books a match for tonight, and then ends up faking an injury to sort of walk away from Becky one more time, just to sort of shove it in her face. So I really enjoyed this. It's done wonders for Alexa. I think she's one of the more interesting women on the entire roster right now, and her promo skills certainly help that.
Yeah, certainly. And I think she did good for herself on Talking Smack as well, where she's really always shined since they've had that show. Alexa Bliss has been one of the ones that's really taken that show, and every time she's on, she does a great job of kind of whatever message she's trying to send. She gets that over there, and I thought she did well there for herself. So I mean, honestly, I don't understand why. I know it's copying, and I know we said this when they had that one Raw talk or whatever. But really, if you're not going to spend the time to really develop these characters that much, why not have the Raw talk be a regular thing and do that for them? You don't even have to do it live after the show. You could have guys during Raw, if you don't want to waste any more time, you could have during Raw some of the ones that have already been on the show be on there, and then if you want to have whoever was in the main event be on there for the last 5 minutes or so, and you can have it be maybe not right after Raw, but maybe like 15 minutes after Raw is over. Tell them, okay, go to the network and watch this or something. I don't know. I just think, or you could just start it with the main event segment and then kind of go down, and just they don't have to know that the rest of it was pre-taped. Mm-hmm. Just an idea, so they don't have to spend 30 more minutes at the show, but.
For me, the Raw Talk show didn't really seem to work. And maybe it's just because of the lineup or whatever, but it felt, I don't know, it didn't feel right. Talking Smack somehow feels right because you're sitting there talking to Daniel Bryan, and you have all that stuff going on there, and they work the feuds into the GM stuff, which I mean, as much as we harp on wrestling not needing GMs anymore, are trying to find a way to where they don't. SmackDown certainly has benefited from Daniel Bryan doing the Talking Smack thing, and you get that carryover. I don't know if you really... It didn't feel like we got that on Raw Talk, you know?
I felt like Booker T was more like grilling people than he was trying to talk to them, and that was the problem. And they embarrassed the crap out of Bayley on that one where she's trying to cut a promo and she couldn't do it for to save her life, and it made it look really bad. And so it's like, I don't know, maybe they have to figure out what they would want that show to be, but it does help build those characters. There's, like I said, Alexa Bliss, Baron Corbin has really benefited from when he's on there. The Miz made himself into another level with this thing with Daniel Bryan that started on there. So, the Usos have done well on there. AJ. So to me, I think it helps. But again, like what you just said, the reason it works is because of Daniel Bryan being the way he is. They have to sort of find what would make it work for Raw and go that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of touches on everything from SmackDown. Like I said, I thought this was a good show to watch. I thought it was on par with what we gave. I mean, you don't have the. I think definitely that last match between the two New Day matches, I think certainly take the cake over anything on this show. But I think for me, I'd still give it sort of the same rating as the show from Raw, 6.5 for me.
I enjoyed this show. Parts of it were a little dull. We even got an Apollo Crews sighting with Gabriel Iglesias in that short little segment there with The Miz. That was totally throwaway, but it's good to see that he's still alive, really. So, I think I'm right there with you. 6.5, maybe on the verge of a 6. Stuff mattered. It just, some of it wasn't overall that exciting. The Battle Royal could have been a little shorter, in my opinion, but it was still fun, and the main event was great, too. So, I mean, certainly the stuff that was here was all going towards the same point, which is something we always say for SmackDown and can't always say for Raw.
Right. Definitely know how to build the shows into actually making sure they mean something every segment. Which is hard to do with Raw sometimes because they still feel like they have to have just filler stuff.
Right.
But that's going to do it for our SmackDown Live review. Don't worry, if you're listening to this on demand, there is a 205 live review. We're just doing it separately so that, you have the option. If you only want to listen to one, or say you only got 30 minutes that this took right now and you have 20, 30 more minutes later, you can listen to a 205 thing later. So, all right. Until next week, that does it for our WTM SmackDown Live review. See you later, everybody.
Later, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.